The provincial government changing its mind once again. Paid sick days back on the table. The pandemic is changing how emergency first responders work. A look at the adjustments and the lessons that have been learned. A live look outside. Nice for the sun to come out just in time to make it for the show. Covered by clouds for most of the day here at Windsor. 9 degrees outside right now. Colette Kennedy with the forecast tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. We start with breaking news tonight. The federal government has just banned all passenger flights from India and Pakistan for 30 days. That will start tonight. India is dealing with an unprecedented surge in COVID-19 cases. As CBC's Mernell Yunshin reports, families in Windsor are worried about their loved ones.
We never know who is going to be hit by, the COVID-19.
Pandya is anxious as his parents weather the surge of COVID-19 in India. The country is experiencing one of its worst days with over 300,000 cases being reported. Pandya's parents are Canadian. They have been stuck in India because of restrictions. 6 months ago, they contracted COVID-19 and survived. But Pandya is afraid it may happen again.
We are very scared about anything happen anytime.
His concern is justified as a new variant found in India called the double mutant is sweeping the nation. Experts are concerned B1617 is more severe and deadly. Calls were growing for flights coming from India to be banned. Community members are concerned that the flight ban will do more harm than good.
Really want that to be the last resort, but to try every other possibility to see if we can increase, more monitoring and more testing of travelers coming into the country and see how it can be restricted or limited. But to outright ban, it just sends out a message to the community that, this one particular country, is having things out of control.
Thirumala's family in India has also gotten COVID at various points in the pandemic, but she is worried that there is racist rhetoric surrounding the flight ban.
Kind of also trickles down to everyday kind of interaction, everyday aggression between, groups of people, racism, hate, and other kind of discrimination against those communities. Because you now see as if you are, the ones that are being very safe and, following all the rules, but then there's this particular, community or country from where, people are seeing a lot of, cases. So we are always monitoring situation here in Windsor. We are encouraging.
The South Asian Center asked that anyone needing assistance in the community in Windsor to reach out. Mernell Yunshin, CBC News.
And here in Windsor-Essex, a milestone marked this morning. Dr. Wajid Ahmed never expected us to reach 5,000 cases of COVID-19. And today, the health unit marked 15,000 total cases in the community.
The first thing is we're still dealing with this COVID pandemic. That's the first thing that came to my mind. And it's unfortunate that, our case counts continues to increase. But I think the surge that we have seen in December, January was really scary. And basically it deflated us for the most part with that many cases in such a short period of time. We are looking at the silver lining at this time that we are giving out vaccine. We are continuing to roll out the vaccine.
And that silver lining is 31% that have now gotten a first dose of COVID-19. But Windsor Regional Hospital will see their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Windsor Regional Hospital, meanwhile, is about to see a big uptake in patients that are transferred from hotspots in Ontario. Most of them will be coming from Trillium Health Partners in Mississauga. Most will have COVID-19. That is likely. The hospital has partnered with Windsor Regional Hospital. Transfers are going to jump to 5 a day. That's going to start on Sunday. It'll be 40 patients total by the end of the month. A significant jump for the hospital. Earlier this week, the total number of transfers sat at 5. It's unclear if or how much of the overflow will be sent to Erie Shores or hospitals in Chatham, Kent, and Sarnia. And the success of last week's pop-up mobile clinic in Wheatley, Chatham-Kent's now planning more. In Wheatley, there's about 300 people who got vaccinated. A second in Highgate vaccinated more than 320 people. The Ford government hinted at offering workers paid sick days today. Medical professionals and politicians have been calling on the government to offer this for months, something the Premier has opposed. But his comments today, while thin on details, raise a glimmer of hope for those who have been saying the benefit is needed, especially during COVID-19. Jacob Barker on what that would mean locally.
Taking a day off is not acceptable.
Joey Wright works as a line cook at a Windsor restaurant. He's one worker that has no paid sick days in an industry where taking one would be an afterthought.
To be able to have those paid sick days is such a huge deal, because in the restaurant we have a culture of you go to work, whether you're sick, whether you're injured, it doesn't really matter.
Well, the Ford government has rejected calls from the Liberal Party to immediately give workers 10 paid sick days, saying it would be on the employers to pay for. In 2018, it also did away with legislation that provided workers with 2 paid sick days. Today, Ford says that the federal government has not made improvements to its program that covers workers for missing at least half a week of work retroactively.
That's why we're now working on our own solution to fill those gaps for everyone in Ontario.
Wright says having paid sick days would mean all the difference at any time, especially during the pandemic.
If you have to take those 2 weeks off to quarantine, that's more than devastating. That's having to choose between your electricity bill or your phone bill.
Windsor City Councillor Kieran McKenzie brought a motion earlier this week urging the province to legislate sick days.
Given the fact that the Premier up until today was staunchly opposed to bringing this forward, I'm not terribly optimistic that we'll see something sooner rather than later.
He says it's critically important to protect these workers, as many of them are on the front line and have been celebrated for continuing to come into work.
It's one thing to acknowledge what they're doing. I think it's a whole other thing to actually walk the walk and offer them and support offering them the protections that they need in order to be able to continue to deliver the services that they're delivering in the safest way that they possibly can.
Wright says he believes that since it has to do with health, it's been a provincial responsibility all along.
Let's put it this way. Would you go to a restaurant if you know that your cook has a cold or the flu? No, but they have to go to work because they can't afford not to. Paid sick leave would give them the time to stay home and recover and recuperate.
Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Premier Ford held his first press conference since Friday today. He's tested negative after a COVID-19 exposure, but continues to isolate. Ford used his first appearance to apologize for closing playgrounds and giving police unprecedented power, which was what he did the last time he addressed the province.
And I know that some of those measures, especially around enforcement, they went too far. Simply put, we got it wrong. I know we got it wrong. I know we made a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry, and I sincerely apologize.
Meanwhile, this afternoon, Windsor Councillor Reno Bordelin asked about those new provincial powers during today's police board meeting, asking how police are determining if any officer abuses the powers, specifically with the BIPOC community.
Well, I think that's something that's done every day by our officers. Our officers do have a lot of authority that they're given, and they're always looking at the totality of the circumstances when they're using any of their powers, whether that be to enforce any regulations under, this act or any other legislation that they're enforcing. So they do look at those types of situations, the entire situation, and use the entire circumstance to make their decision on how they're going to proceed.
Chief went on to say that there was a lot of concern from the public after the provincial changes to their power, which ended up changing. Premier Ford had stated police could stop people at random and ask why they are not at home and where they live, with fines attached. Now, police can stop vehicles or people if they are suspected of participating in an organized public event or a social gathering. And emergency responders are reshaping how they operate because of COVID-19. This pandemic has placed a tremendous amount of weight on their shoulders. The CBC's Katerina Georgieva takes a look at what's changed and the big takeaways.
We as a society have to be able to adapt and change at a moment's notice with the pandemic.
Let's start with EMS. A big change, that 911 call. Now it comes with a round of pandemic questions, from recent travel to symptoms.
Asking people over the phone while these people are asking to get help can be very labor intensive, very confusing, but it's needed for the safety of both the responder and of the patients.
This determines what PPE is required. That gear, here to stay, even after the pandemic is over. Another shift, a scene assessment upon arrival. Another round of questions before entering a home, a factor that might slow crews down a bit. Let's turn to fire now. A key change, their approach once at a scene. Limit contacts when they can, like on a medical call.
Rather than have a team of two assess the patient right away, we would just use a more cautious approach and have one person come in that close-to-close personal contact at first.
And if multiple agencies respond to the same scene, they'll quickly determine whether or not everyone is needed. As for police, key changes include their pre-arrival call protocols. They ask more questions so that police are better prepared upon arrival.
That means that they spend less time on these calls and allows them to have more time to respond to other more serious calls.
In all, emergency call volumes have dropped during the pandemic. As for response times, for EMS and fire, they didn't see much of a shift. But for police, they were faster in 2020 than in 2019 by about 2 minutes. Goze chalks it up to pandemic behaviors.
There's less people on the street, there's less cars, more people at home.
A year later, though, the toll is clear.
Healthcare system is getting tired. We're at the point of we want this over with. We want to get off this roller coaster.
But he knows a return to a pre-COVID approach is far from reach.
What we did in 2019, we're not going to do again. And if we do it, it's going to be a long way down the road.
His biggest takeaway, be patient, be kind, and be able to adapt and change. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
The province has finally come through with the money for the new Catholic Central High School.
The work on site has just the very preliminary stages in terms of starting to move some of the earth there, but you're going to be seeing quite a bit of action in the coming days and the coming weeks because we have a tight deadline. We intend to meet it, and the contractor's committed to doing it. So if you go out there in the next few days, you'll see them working.
The Ontario government announced that the $30 million project is going ahead. The school will be built by Oscar Construction Company and will have capacity for 900 students. It's going to be located on land on McDougall Street and on Olette Avenue. It's expected to open in September of 2022. The money, it comes from a $550 million provincial capital allocation to build 21 new schools in the province. Mary and Henry Bibb will once again have a plaque. Now, that plaque was stolen a few weeks ago. Today, the federal government announced they will replace it. The plaque is valued at more than $6,000. The city had restored the plaque during Black History Month to coincide with the Sandwich Town Park's renaming from Mackenzie Hall Park to Mary E. Bibb Park. And last night, CBC News reported that 2 owls were found in East Windsor, one seriously injured, the other dead. They were found after crews were in the area trimming tree branches. Today, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry Conservation say that they are investigating. We take a live look outside now. Certainly nice to see the colors that are popping up around the grass, looking green as ever. The Detroit River, not as clear as it once was, but still doing all right. Colette Kennedy is going to come up next and tell us what the forecast looks like. Glenn, I gotta say, the sun popped out. The sun is out.
It did
Colette,
all those
and
things.
it's already ruined my whole being and vibe. But it's nice that it's there. I clearly am ready to pop out and see what's going on. Is it sticking around? What's going on here?
Yes, you know what? It's so nice to have this. We're after some lake effect stuff at the province today. Yeah, we. In April, we're getting that. We are seeing this clearing trend, so that's nice. Getting some breaks, some sunshine coming out. Temperatures, our average high this time of year, about 15. Today's high, it was a struggle. I think we saw one reading at 9, but an official reporting station will just round that up to 8. And even our low, today's low, yeah. Cool start, too, with the winds, too, because we had the wind chill to deal with as well. And these are the current temperatures where they're holding right now. And you can see some of the cooler readings over towards Kitchener, just 3 degrees there, but it's cool enough here. It's been a west to northwesterly flow, and that change as it shifts is really important because it's going to turn around towards the west to southwesterly, and once we get into that, we get to see those temperatures spiking up once again. So much milder as we go into Friday. A little bit gusty with the winds in the morning hours. Other than that, not too bad. And you can kind of watch that cloud deck clearing away, also losing some of that lake effect precipitation. So that's moving too. As high pressure noses in, we get more clearing overnight tonight, but then that gives us that beautiful setup with the sunshine for tomorrow. Now, definitely in the early part of the day, I will say that as we get into the afternoon, we'll see some clouds starting to roll in, so sunnier early, but still nice into the afternoon. And then as we're looking ahead and going into Saturday, yes, it becomes cloudy as we start to roll through the day, and into the afternoon and evening hours, showers will be moving through. So part of the day is going to be wet. At least get out there early if you want to get some fresh air. And then we'll see improvement as we go into Sunday, and that thing kicks out of here, all right? Tonight, the low -2, but feeling like -7 tomorrow morning. Like I said, the winds as they kick up a little bit. There's your increasing afternoon cloud. How about these temperatures? Kind of a change from where we are right now. We're going to add another 10 degrees there. Saturday comes down a little bit. I do want you to take note, Chris, of what happens here towards midweek next week. We're going to see a spike. 5 days out. I don't know if it's actually going to mid-20s, but that's how it's looking when I look at my projections right now.
You told us it was going to snow. It snowed. If you tell us it's going to spike up, it's going to spike up. I trust in you, Colette.
There you go. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Appreciate your confidence.
Now, U.S. President Joe Biden, he hosted an international summit on climate change today because it's Earth Day. Leaders from 40 countries met virtually to discuss ways to improve the situation. There were some commitments to major reductions in greenhouse gases, including one from Canada. CBC's Rafi Buchanan has the details.
All of us, and particularly those of us who represent the world's largest economies, we have to step up.
Joe Biden laying down the gauntlet for other big polluters this morning as he confirmed his country's commitment
to cut greenhouse gases in half by the end of this decade.
Thank you.
Canada echoing that kind of challenge.
If major economies in the room were to follow Canada's lead and adopt a rising price on pollution and commit to phase out coal plants, we would accelerate our global path.
Right after it unveiled its own more modest goal, a 40 to 45% cut from 2005 levels in the next 9 years. But this country's already failed to meet previous targets under conservative and liberal governments.
Shiny announcements, zero delivering. Canadians can expect a Prime Minister with a conservative government that will deliver on its targets.
The government has federal legislation in the works to legally bind it to climate reductions targets. But this environmentalist points out it's been stalled in debate.
So we've seen a bit of a track record in the last 6 years with this government delaying the implementation of some climate policies or implementing some climate policies with less stringency than they were originally imagined.
All this as economies that are smaller than Canada are setting ambitious goals of their own.
Every year, we are spending on an average $5 billion US, about 2.5% of our GDP, on climate adaptation and resilience building measures.
When the dust settles from this week's summit, the real work will begin. The feds reaching out to provinces about their new goals, hoping for cooperation. Alberta, home to most of the country's oil and gas sector, already says it wants to see more details first. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The pandemic has forced the cancellation of the Women's World Hockey Championship. The tournament was supposed to be held in Nova Scotia next month, but the province pulled its approval just a day before teams were set to arrive and start that quarantine. The provincial government says concerns over public safety were behind the decision. Nova Scotia has seen a jump in new infections lately. Recently, they imposed a ban on non-essential travel. It's the second time that the tournament has been canceled due to the pandemic. Organizers and Hockey Canada say they will now work on holding the event sometime during the summer. A science experiment on Mars, making any future manned missions there possible. More when we return. Daunte Wright was laid to rest today in Minneapolis. The 20-year-old black man was killed by a police officer during a traffic stop last weekend. Magda Gaberslassie reports.
I'll be buried in my grave.
The church was filled with people from the community, other families who have lost loved ones at the hands of police, and civil rights leaders, all here to support Daunte Wright's family as they prepare to say a final goodbye. Wright's parents wanted everybody to know that he was loved.
My son had a smile that was worth $1 million. When he walked in the room, he lit up the room. He was a brother, a jokester. He was loved by so many. He's gonna be so missed.
While this service was all about celebrating Wright's life, there were also calls for justice for how he died.
As we make the plea for justice in the court of public opinion, that we pray Attorney General Keith Ellison will allow us to get full justice in the court of law.
Kim Potter, the former police officer accused of killing Wright, has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. Police say she believes she was firing off her taser that day, but people here believe she should be charged with murder. Magda Gabriel-Selassie, CBC News in Minneapolis.
An intense international search is underway for a missing Indonesian submarine. The vessel disappeared near Bali during a training exercise yesterday. Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, they're all offering assistance.
Whatever we are able to do, we have undertaken to do. And I think those submariners and their families are very much in need of all of our thoughts and prayers.
There are 53 people on board the missing submarine. The search is being concentrated around an oil slick near the vessel's last known location. The diesel-powered sub is believed to have enough air on board to last until Saturday. Indonesia's Navy says an electric failure may have caused the sub to lose its ability to resurface. And NASA's reporting a new first from Mars. The Perseverance rover is able to convert carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere into oxygen. It's creating a renewable source of oxygen that would be a key to any future missions to the Red Planet, both to keep astronauts alive and as a fuel for their spacecraft. Perseverance is using a device called MOXIE to split the oxygen atoms out of the CO2 on Mars. The Martian atmosphere, 96% carbon dioxide. Taking a selfie, that's been done before. Taking a selfie with a pet that you catch, that's something new, and it's something adorable. Jalen Henry is a bylaw officer in Dawson City, Yukon, and one of his jobs is dealing with stray animals. Some of his passengers don't look all that pleased to be getting a lift to a local shelter, but others, they're taking it in stride. The shelter, they have a no-kill policy, so pets get collected by their owners who pay a fine. Henry says he started posting the selfies to show another side to his job and put a face to everything. And that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please send those photos you take around Windsor-Essex if you're out and about trying to get some exercise. We love looking at the city through your eyes. The Rick Mercer Report, it's up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.